Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world with me, Deepika, coming up in the next 1 hour. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrives in Saudi Arabia for talks with Russian officials. Talks to take place in Riyadh on Tuesday. European leaders call for an emergency summit on Ukraine in Paris. Keir Starmer calls it once in a generational moment for national security. US President Donald Trump says he could meet with Putin very soon, ending Russia-Ukraine conflict to be atop the agenda. And Sri Lanka's president presents annual budget, affirms combating poverty in 2025, says new bankruptcy law to be presented soon. Good afternoon to all our viewers joining us at this broadcast at TD India News Hour. To begin with the latest that we are tracking for you at this hour. Well, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio reached Saudi Arabia on Monday, aimed at ending the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, during his visit, Rubio will hold talks with Russian officials. US top diplomat Rubio, who spoke through a telephonic conversation with his Russian counterpart, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, on Saturday, will meet Russian officials in Saudi Arabia alongside Trump's National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and White House Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff. The talks come after the US President Donald Trump held a telephonic conversation with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin and ordered the top officials to begin negotiations on the conflict. Riyadh has been in talks with Washington over the future of the Gaza Strip and has also mediated between the Trump administration and Moscow, helping to secure a prisoner swap last week. Now, top US diplomat Marco Rubio and Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu presented a united front on their approach to Hamas and Iran as the new Secretary of the State was in Israel in the first leg of his West Asia tour. Netanyahu, meanwhile, has vowed to finish the job against Iran with the support of US President Donald Trump. Here's more.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, praising Trump as Israel's greatest ally. They discussed countering Iran and achieving objectives in Gaza, including eliminating Hamas and ensuring the release of hostages.
I told Bibi, you do whatever you want because, my statement was they got to come back. Now, the reason I made that statement because they said they weren't going to deliver, they were not going to deliver the people that they said they were going to deliver, that they agreed to deliver. And they did agree to do that, but they broke that agreement. When I made the statement, they delivered everybody plus an American. Now, the good news is they look like they're in pretty good shape because the people from the week before didn't look like they were in good shape.
Netanyahu said Israel and the US share a common strategy on Gaza's future and hailed President Donald Trump's plan.
Why not give Gazans a choice? Everybody said this is the largest open-air prison in the world. Not because of us. We let people leave. In fact, if you want to know, over the last couple of years, 2 years I think, 150,000 Gazans left. You know how they left? Because they bribed their way out, not to us. They bribed their way out. We will not allow Syria to be used again as a staging ground for attacks against Israel. Now, all this has been done to date, but of course there remains a principal problem, and that problem is the source of all these attacks against us, all this aggression against us, and that source is one country. It's Iran.
Rubio went on to accuse Tehran of being behind every act of violence and everything that threatens peace and stability in the region.
The common theme in all of these challenges is Iran. It is the single greatest source of instability in the region. Behind every terrorist group, behind every act of violence, behind every destabilizing activity, behind everything that threatens peace and stability for the millions of people who call this region home, is Iran. And by Iran, I mean the Ayatollahs. By Iran, I mean its regime. A regime who, by the way, its people don't support. The people of Iran are victims of that regime.
The meeting comes a day after 3 Israeli hostages were released by Hamas and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and detainees were released by Israel as part of a US-mediated ceasefire agreement. Trump's West Asia envoy, Steve Witkoff, said that the talks on Phase 2 of Israel-Hamas truce will continue this week. Israeli negotiators would travel to Cairo on Monday to discuss continuing the first phase of the ceasefire deal. Israel's Security Cabinet would also meet on Monday to discuss the second phase of the ceasefire deal. Bureau Report, DD India.
In a major diplomatic development, US President Donald Trump has indicated that he could meet President Vladimir Putin of Russia very soon. However, no official date has been set for the meeting. Now, this comes as US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Riyadh, leading a high-level delegation for talks with Russian officials. Here's more.
US President Donald Trump said Sunday he could meet very soon with Vladimir Putin, adding he believes his Russian counterpart genuinely wants to stop fighting in Ukraine. This was after Secretary of State Marco Rubio sought to play down expectations of upcoming high-level talks in Riyadh on ending the conflict.
On your timing of your meeting with Putin in Saudi Arabia?
No, with no time set, but it could be very soon.
Like this month?
Well,
or?
it'll be soon. We'll see what happens. But they're meeting right now, and that's more. I mean, this should have been done 4 years ago, 3 years ago, before it started.
Rubio further sought to assuage European and Ukrainian fear that they would be shut off from the peace negotiations. He said Ukraine and Europe would be part of any real negotiations. Rubio gave enough hints to suggest that the US talks with Russia were preliminary in nature and were a chance to in fact judge if Russian President Vladimir Putin is indeed serious about peace. Trump said his team has been speaking long and hard with Russian officials. Trump held a call with Putin on Wednesday.
I think he wants to stop fighting. I see that. We spoke long and hard. Steve Witkoff was with him for a very extended period, like about 3 hours. I think he wants to stop fighting.
Trump further added that Zelensky would be involved in the conversations to end the conflict.
Do you expect Zelensky to be involved in these conversations? What will his role be?
I do. He will be involved, yes.
European leaders have been left shocked and stumped by the US president's moves on Ukraine, Russia, and European defense in recent days. They fear Trump will attempt to ink a Ukraine peace deal that undermines broader European continental security. Bureau Report, DD India.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and his wife Olena arrived in Abu Dhabi on Sunday. Ukraine said that the official visit would give priority to Olena Zelensky's humanitarian program and investments along with economic partnership. The UAE had proposed to host a peace summit, which would eventually include a meeting between Putin and Zelensky, as the US, Russia and Ukraine officials visit Riyadh for the peace deal negotiations now. Russian Defense Ministry has claimed that its air defense allegedly downed 90 Ukrainian drones and intercepted 2 HIMARS rockets on Sunday night. Adding further, the ministry claimed of repelling attacks by Ukrainian army in Kharkiv, Avdiivka, Donetsk, Zaporozhye, Kherson and other directions. Meanwhile, Ukraine also claimed of striking the concentration areas of Russian personnel, weapons and military equipment. Reportedly, Ukraine's forces also repelled Russian attacks in multiple directions. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron will host the European leaders, including British Prime Minister, on Monday for an emergency summit on the Ukraine conflict. The French presidency said on Sunday that Macron had called for the consultation talks and that they would address the tumultuous change in the US approach to Ukraine and the attendant risk to the security of the European continent. Leaders are now expected in the meet, which are German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni and Ursula von der Leyen, along with Antonio Costa from the European Union. Meanwhile, Macron held a phone call on Sunday with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, in which Macron discussed Saudi Arabia's role in any peace deal for Ukraine and how Europe should play a key part in this. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has offered to send British peacekeeping troops to Ukraine if needed, hours before European leaders meet in Paris on Monday over Ukraine's conflict. Starmer said he had not taken the decision to consider putting British servicemen and women in harm's way, but securing a lasting peace in Ukraine, which is essential. Starmer's comments were the first time he said he is considering deploying British peacekeepers to Ukraine. He's previously said that Britain was willing to help play a part in any peace deal that is negotiated. Now, nearly 2,000 soldiers take part in Sweden's largest military exercise in central Stockholm, with scenarios of terrorism and subversion around the parliament and the government buildings. The exercise, named repertoire, is held every 3 years and runs over 4 days with urban warfare training in some parts of the capital. Amidst deteriorating security situation in Europe and the Swedish government, it has decided to reinforce the protection of the parliament and the government buildings by the armed forces. Now, candles were laid at the spot of a deadly stabbing rampage in Austria's village that the authorities now believe was carried out by a Syrian asylum seeker, radicalized online and a follower of Islamic State. A 14-year-old boy was killed in Saturday's attack and 5 other people were wounded. The bloodshed followed the thwarting of a plot in August to carry out a suicide attack at a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna by a teenager who had sworn loyalty to the IS. Now, Saturday's rampage also came just days after an attack on Thursday in Munich, in neighboring Germany, by an Afghan national who drove his car into a crowd, injuring dozens of people, 2 of whom later died. We are heading for a short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Uncertainty grips Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo as M23 rebels seize control of one more city of Bukavu. Pre-democracy rally unfolds in Berlin 1 week ahead of the elections. And up next, we'll get you a detailed report on the BAFTA awardees.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Now, chaos and uncertainty have gripped the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo as M23 rebels, backed by Rwanda, seized control of one more key city of Bukavu on Sunday. Now, this marks another devastating step in the ongoing conflict that has already claimed thousands of lives in the region. We have a detailed report. Take a look.
After weeks of advancing, M23 forces have seized control of Bukavu, South Kivu's capital, with little resistance from retreating Congolese troops. The rebel group is consolidating its position, and with Bukavu's fall, M23 now controls key areas around Lake Kivu, including Goma. The involvement of troops from Rwanda and Burundi has further escalated the already volatile situation.
We are all very, very concerned about an open regional war in over Eastern DRC. And this, we reiterated the need for caution and the need for M23 and its supporters to disarm and withdraw from the Goma airport and other occupied territories.
The withdrawal of Congolese troops from Bukavu has caused a power vacuum, sparking lootings and violence. While some locals see M23 as a stabilizing force, their advance raises concerns over further instability and human rights violations. The involvement of neighboring troops has heightened fears of a wider regional war, fueled by long-standing tensions dating back to the 1990s Rwandan genocide. The international community urges de-escalation, with the African Union and the UN warning of catastrophic consequences from a wider war. The UN estimates 350,000 displaced people, with thousands fleeing into neighboring Burundi, where authorities are struggling to accommodate the influx of refugees.
This new escalation should not become an open conflict that will disrupt and impact on humanitarian activities and the already very weakened social fabric in the region. The only way to solve the problem in Eastern DRC is for all parties to sit around the table.
The conflict with M23 has lasted more than 3 years, with Kinshasa accusing Kigali of wanting to control the mining and trade of minerals used in batteries and electronic equipments, and also of trying to appropriate land for agriculture, and it has but heightened fears of a breakup of DR Congo. With Aarti Rana's report, DT India.
Moving on. A week before Germany's general election, tens of thousands of people joined a demonstration against the far right in Berlin. According to local police, around 30,000 demonstrators took part in the rally. In a press release, the organizers called for a decisive fight against right-wing extremism, racism, as well as commitment to social justice, fair working conditions, climate protection, and responsible international politics. Speaking on stage, actor and musician Herbert Grönemeyer urged the crowd to vote in the upcoming elections, saying that German democracy was under attack from enemies of democracy who wanted to destroy liberal coexistence. So Germany is getting closer to its snap elections next weekend, and the country will elect its next government. And just a week out, Berlin learns of another budget shortfall. Lars Holter is with us from Deutsche Welle and joins us from Berlin. Good afternoon, Lars. Now, what can you tell us about the latest development, Lars?
Thanks for having me. Well, we're short of money again, and there's a wider gap in the budget than was expected. And here's the reason. Over the past few years, the Berlin government has paid out billions in COVID relief funds back during the height of the pandemic, there was, as well as more recently energy subsidies. It was all part of a well-organized and legitimate bailout intended to stabilize the German economy in times of crisis. Crisis, at least partially, with the pandemic that was felt worldwide and was not of the government's own doing. Now, with all those programs paid out and audited, it turns out that here and there too much support was given, and so lots of monies have been flowing back to the government. 2.9 billion euros from the energy package and 500 million on COVID help, for a total of 3.4 billion euros. And that money had been planned to flow into the 2025 budget planning until the courts said no, and now there is a gaping hole in the budget.
But Lars, why can't the money flow back into the budget?
Well, that's because these emergency funds were granted, even though they couldn't be funded as part of the government's budget back when they came into place. The government took on credit, they took on debt, and that, according to the often discussed debt break, is only permissible in emergencies. Now, there was an emergency, but now there isn't, and emergency funds can't become normal budget funds. Anything coming back to the government will have to be used to pay off debt again. That means that those 3.4 billion euros will be paid out to lower Germany's debt instead of being reinvested like the government had been planning. Add to that already known problems, and the budget gap for 2025 no longer stands at 26 but at almost $30 billion.
So what is the way out of this problem then, Lars?
Well, I really only see one way out of this. Germany needs to take on more debt, and there was one party in the last government, a three-party coalition, that was vehemently fighting against new debt. That's the business-friendly Free Liberals. They took the fight for the debt break so far that the government eventually collapsed, leading to these new elections that we're having this coming weekend now. Now, that party currently stands at 4% in the polls, and that means that they're likely not going to be part of parliament any longer because you need 5% to actually get in. So there's a good likelihood that a new government will take on new debt. And there's two ways to look at this. Of course, debt is a huge problem for the country, and it has to eventually be paid back by future generations nonetheless. But economists are pretty much in agreement over the fact that new debt is necessary, as massive investment in infrastructure is seen as the number one way to pull Germany out of its current economic misery. Whether it's railroads or the Autobahn highway system, whether it's bridges or digitalization, Germany's infrastructure is in dire need of investment. It would also bring jobs, and it would bring money to millions of workers and employees in the sector. All that is good, but for now, of course, it needs financing, so these latest budget details might play into some voters' decision come Sunday.
All right, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us the latest from Berlin, Lars Holter. Moving on. Argentine President Javier Milei could face an impeachment trial in Congress after the liberation leader touted a cryptocurrency that crashed soon after. Now, Milei late on Friday posted on X recommending the little-known crypto coin Libra, which soon after shot up to nearly $5 a piece. Just hours later, the cryptocurrency plummeted to under $1. Argentina's fintech chamber acknowledged that the case could potentially be a rug pull in which the developers of a crypto token draw legitimate investments, pumping up the value only to later dump their stake. Opposition lawmakers said that they would launch an impeachment request against Javier Milei. Milei later said he took down his post after becoming aware of the circumstances and that he had no relation to the cryptocurrency. Moving on, a powerful storm swept through the eastern United States that brought devastating flash floods, claiming 8 lives. The news was confirmed by Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear in a press briefing. The storm brought flooding and exceptionally powerful winds, downing trees and cutting power, disrupting transport and the communication. He added that the emergency response team conducted over 1,000 operations to rescue those impacted by the storm.
Where we are right now is in the emergency response phase. This is the search and rescue phase. And I am very proud of all the Kentuckians that are out there responding, putting their lives on the line to help others. As we are here 24 hours into this natural disaster, we've already seen over 1,000 rescues. Unfortunately, this disaster is taking a toll in terms of human life. Even with the incredible response that we've seen, we can confirm that we've lost at least 8 Kentuckians due to this weather.
Now, as severe winter weather grips much of Canada, another snowstorm hit eastern Canada during the weekend, causing flight delays and cancellations. Winter storm warnings have been given for most of the regions as the country deals with extreme cold for the third day now. The weather agency forecast between 15 to 40 centimeters of snowfall in eastern Ontario and western Quebec. Meanwhile, the accumulating snow caused traffic hazards and collisions due to reduced visibility, while the authorities on Monday urged people to avoid travelling unless urgent. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world in brief. Over 4 tons of methamphetamines in Sinaloa by Mexican army. The raid was conducted on various laboratories and warehouses. The recent raids on drug operatives in Mexico are an outcome of the U.S. threat of sanctions. In a verdict that could bar Singapore's opposition leader Pritam Singh from contesting a general election this year, the court found him guilty of lying on 2 counts to the parliament on Monday. He has been asked to submit a maximum fine of Singaporean $7,000 for each charge by the prosecution. Mauritius former Prime Minister Pravin Jugnauth was released on a bail by the court on Monday. He was arrested on charges of money laundering on Sunday after the authorities searched and seized 114 million Mauritius rupees from his home. Medical specialists at a Mongolian hospital are working on a non-surgical, non-anesthetic liver cancer treatment at the Second National Hospital in Ulaanbaatar. This includes a multi-needle ablation method that does not need surgery and will not cause large scars, but the results will be same as the surgery. Glitz, glamour and groundbreaking achievements. The 2025 BAFTA Award ceremony had it all. In a night that celebrated the best of British and international cinema, several films and individuals took home the top honours. Here's more.
The 2025 BAFTA Awards ceremony was a night to remember, with Conclave and The Brutalist tying for top honours, each taking home 4 prestigious awards.
The BAFTA goes to Conclave.
Conclave, directed by Edward Berger, won Best Film, while Berger paid tribute to the film's wonderful script and lead actor Ralph Fiennes. Meanwhile, Brady Corbett took home the Best Director award for The Brutalist, and Adrian Brody won Best Actor for his powerful portrayal of Hungarian Holocaust survivor. The BAFTA ceremony was not without its surprises, as Emilia Perez, a film that had been heavily favoured to win, ended the evening with only 2 BAFTAs, including one for Zoe Saldana for Best Supporting Actress and another one in the category of Best Film Not in the English Language. The film's lead actor, Carla Sofia Gascon, had been embroiled in a scandal surrounding old controversial social media posts, which likely impacted the film's chances.
Mikey Madison.
In a heartwarming moment, Mikey Madison dedicated her Best Actress award to the sex worker community, saying they deserve respect and human dignity. The ceremony also saw a show of support for the LGBTQ community, with Zoe Saldana dedicating her award to her trans nephew and stating that she would always stand with the community. The 2025 BAFTA ceremony was a celebration of excellence in filmmaking, with a diverse range of winners and a clear message of support for the marginalized communities. Antara Sinha for DD India.
We're heading for a short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Up next, we'll get you an analytical view of the current situation in the European Union as they undertake an emergency Ukraine summit. And yet another edition of Pariksha Pe Charcha enlightens students and teachers, this time with renowned sports athletes. And Delhi wakes up with early morning tremors as earthquake hits the national capital on Monday morning.
timeless, boundless, and infinite, the essence of faith, the soul of Sanatan culture, from the sacred confluence of Prayag, where divinity descends to earth. Witness the grandeur, the devotion, the magic, world's largest cultural and spiritual gathering, with over 450 million devotees expected to attend. Mahakumbh, India's greatest festival of faith. Exclusively on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. It's now time to quickly recap the top headlines of the hour. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrives in Saudi Arabia for talks with Russian officials. Talks to take place in Riyadh on Tuesday. European leaders call for emergency summit on Ukraine in Paris. Keir Starmer calls it once-in-a-generation moment for national security. US President Donald Trump says he could meet with Putin very soon, ending Russia-Ukraine conflict to be atop the agenda. And now to discuss more on the ongoing European Leaders Summit, which is to begin in Paris, I'm joined by Dr. Rajan Kumar, who's the professor from School of International Studies, JNU. Good afternoon, Professor Kumar. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, the European Leaders Ukraine Summit has convened at a very crucial time when the US is meeting Russian counterparts, but fears are at the same time looming large for European Union members as well. What is your view of European Union's stand right now?
I think this is very interesting. The European countries are very worried. They're rattled. They don't know how to deal with the situation because the two countries, US and Russia, they have decided to have their own meeting, and they have included neither Ukraine nor European countries. So European, the kind of message which Trump is trying to send to the European country, that has rattled most of the leaders. And also, just a few days back in the Munich Security Conference, which takes place between the European country and the United States. In that conference, J.D. Vance, the Vice President, sent a very disrupting message to Europe. Before that, the Defense Secretary has given a kind of statements where he seems to agree to most of the demands of Russia. He is trying to portray the entire conflict from the Russian perspective, and that is being taken in European countries and also in the United States among the Democrats as a surrender of the United States policy, the way it was being pursued. So that has created an issue, and that's exactly the reason why you see that when the representative of United States and Russia, they are going to meet in Saudi Arabia, while the Macron, the French president, he is planning to have a meeting on Ukraine, I think tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So there is a parallel meeting taking place because Ukraine is worried, because Europe is worried, and nobody knows what exactly the kind of deal will take place between Trump and Putin. Trump and Putin are also likely to meet. Sometimes, the Victory Day is being said that that's the day when President Trump might go to Russia and he might meet President Putin. So there is a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, which is happening in so far as negotiations are concerned, and there is no clear message emerging. The biggest losers are two set of people. One is Ukrainian, and the second one is, of course, some of the countries of Europe, because they had depended too much on United States, believing that there is a bipartisan consensus, which means they thought that the Republican Party as well as the Democratic Party, they'll continue to pursue the policy towards Ukraine, what they followed in the last 3 years. But unfortunately, that seems to come to a halt, and there is a complete change in the policy of United States, and that has led to kind of the muddle that you see in Europe today.
Considering the Ukraine summit, Keir Starmer is understood to see his role as bringing the US and the Europe together to ensure a united approach to peace in Ukraine. But what is the likely possibility of this, considering his intention to do so and the possibility of and the likelihood of both the meetings going hand in hand together at the same time?
Europe also knows its limits, because it does not have the resources to continuously support Ukraine. It is not willing to send its military to Ukraine to fight against Russia. and the economies of Europe, European countries are in crisis in most of the places, and the inflation is very high. So under those circumstances, Europe does not seem to have too many choices. And Ukraine has also said, Zelensky in his statement just a few days back, he said that Ukraine cannot survive without American support. And what he meant is both economic as well as military support. Under those circumstances, what the European countries are trying to do, essentially two things. One is that they want some kind of security guarantee from whatever deal takes place between US and Russia, and they also want to ensure that some kind of support to Ukraine will continue, and if possible, there is a talk about that. There is a kind of a speculation, but we don't really know whether that will happen. They are planning some kind of sending, say, some kind of some forces who will not fight in the war against Russia, but who might maintain the security of Ukraine in the buffer zone. So those are the proposals which are being mooted before the meeting which is taking place between Macron and UK and France. They are the two leaders, the two countries which are very active in having some kind of security guarantee for Ukraine. So they think that unless until there is some guarantee to Ukraine, so it will lead to two things. One is that the credibility of Europe would be in crisis. That how will people or the other countries in the world, they'll trust Europe, and what will happen to Ukraine once they fear that that Russian regime might expand further in the future, although it may or may not, we don't really know. But the fear in Europe is that Russia might invade some other countries as well. So because of that, they want to create some kind of buffer zone. They want to create some kind of stability, but that is in crisis now because US has completely changed its policy. And the parallel meeting which is taking place in Saudi Arabia, very interesting place that you can ask me later why Saudi Arabia, but the parallel meeting is taking place where the deal would be that Ukraine will not be given the membership to NATO. That's number one. There'll be no pre-2014 kind of the reversal of that position, which means that Crimea and maybe other parts which Russia has occupied, those territories will not be come back to Ukraine. They might remain with Russia. That's the reason why many of the experts from Europe, especially the liberal parties, they are saying that Trump has essentially surrendered to the Russian demands. Although, in my view, let me tell you that it's not a surrender. I think it's a kind of realizing the status quo, the reality, that it's very difficult. But if you want to stop the war, some kind of negotiation will have to take place in which you recognize the security, the vulnerability of Russia, which means that you cannot you cannot have security there unless until you make sure that Ukraine will not be given the membership to NATO. And Russia being such a powerful country, it's impossible for even European countries to push Russia back to its own pre-2014 position. They tried, they did every bit except sending the army, but they have not succeeded. So there is a realization in US and also in some parts of Europe where they think that we cannot go back to a pre-2014 position, and Ukraine cannot be given the membership to NATO.
And apart from that, military spending is also there on the agenda, where NATO's target is 2% of its GDP. But Trump says it should be 5%. What is the likelihood when we talk about the military target here?
Now, I think it's a kind of disruption in what you call Atlantic and European politics. European politics, to a large extent, was aligned to American policies. There were some demands of some kind of in the policy of strategic autonomy, especially by France and to some extent by Germany. But UK always followed the policy of this United States. But so far as your question of this European the raising the expenditure is concerned, I think the issue is much more than just the raising the expenditure, because the kind of policy that US is pursuing, especially the Trump administration, so it has completely disregarded the European security concern. It is not the Trump administration is not taking into account even NATO members. Say, for instance, the NATO was involved in the entire conflict in Ukraine, but at this moment, NATO is not also being considered a party. So European European countries are realizing that they'll have to develop their own European security framework, and which will not be dependent on United States. France is very active. UK, unfortunately, will not take that kind of position, because UK will always work as a shadow of United States in Europe. But other countries, Germany, Italy, the powerful countries of Europe, they might try to develop their own security framework where the security will not be dependent. So even with it has to be not just 5%, but it can be much more than that, because JD Vance has made it clear that we'll not be carrying the burden of European security, and you have to develop your own framework. So they'll have to develop their own military, they'll have to develop their own army, and of course increasing the expenditure, which will from 2 to maybe 5 or even more.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajan Kumar, for joining us and bringing us a rounded perspective on the meeting and what to look forward to. Moving on, the national capital woke up to tremors because an earthquake measuring 4 on the Richter scale hit the Delhi NCR around 5:35 a.m. according to the local standard time at a depth of 5 kilometers. The epicenter was reported to be in Delhi. The tremors that lasted for a few seconds were strong enough to be felt in the residential areas, causing panic among the residents. Many people rushed out of their homes as a precautionary measure. There have been no immediate reports of damage or casualties so far. Well, Delhi NCR falls in seismic zone 4, making it prone to moderate to strong earthquakes. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has urged people in Delhi and nearby areas to remain cautious. Posting on social media platform X, he wrote, and I quote him, "Tremors were felt in Delhi and nearby areas, urging everyone to stay calm and follow safety precautions, staying alert for possible aftershocks. Authorities are keeping a close watch on the situation," unquote. And Dr. Jitendra Singh, who is India's Union Earth Sciences Minister, said that the authorities and professional experts were monitoring the situation in New Delhi after the tremors that were felt in New Delhi. Posting on social media platform X, he said, and I quote, "Following the earthquake tremors felt this morning in and around Delhi at about 5:36 a.m., the authorities are keeping a close watch. And professional experts as well as officials in the Ministry of Earth Sciences are constantly monitoring. However, it is advised to stay calm and exercise safety precautions and preparedness for possible aftershocks, if any." Meanwhile, regular updates are being shared by the department through its different communication channels and social media handles, unquote. India's Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan joined the 126th Founders' Day celebration at the Hindu College alongside Delhi University's Vice-Chancellor Professor Yogesh Singh in New Delhi. Praising the institution that predates Delhi University, the minister called it as a beacon of hope in the field of education. He highlighted the transformative impact of the new education policy and its potential to reshape the country's academic landscape. Minister Pradhan also spoke about the cutting-edge infrastructural developments at Delhi University and Hindu College, emphasizing the government's commitment to enhance higher education facilities.
Create a competition among the students to create a level playing field. We have to come to a common platform. NEP is the new aspirational common platform. Regarding language, I respect all the language. This NEP envisioned by Honorable Prime Minister Modi is giving emphasis to mother tongue. Government of India is committed to implement NEP, and there are certain conditions with NEP.
Our sportspersons inspire us with their resilience, focus and winning mindset. And the 7th episode of Pariksha Pe Charcha hosted legendary athletes Mary Kom, Suhas Yathiraj and Avani Lekra, who shared tips on handling examination pressure. Speaking to exam warriors, Mary Kom recalled how she fought against all the odds to become a world champion multiple times in the sport of boxing, not just for herself, but to empower women across the country as well. Quoting Prime Minister Narendra Modi's book, she said, "Be your own anchor," emphasizing that her 20 years journey as a woman, a wife and a mother is a proof that determination and resilience lead to success.
I took a challenge. I just want to prove myself, not only for myself as well, for the whole girl, for the whole woman in our country. ऐसे करके कितना साल में एक बार नहीं है, 2 बार नहीं, 3 बार नहीं है, कितना बार वर्ल्ड चैंपियन बन के देश के लिए नाम रोशन किया। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी, उसका बुक में भी एक लिखा गया है, बी योर ओन एंकर। और ये 20 साल का जर्नी मैंने लड़की होने का और वाइफ होने का और एक माँ होने का मैंने प्रूव करके दिखाया।
On the other hand, Paralympian Suhas Yathirat shared insights on how to overcome fear during examinations.
Your mind is your greatest friend and your greatest enemy. हम जब परीक्षा लिखने जाते हैं, वो जिंदगी की कोई परीक्षा हो, स्पोर्ट्स की हो, ओलंपिक्स हो, पैरालंपिक्स हो या 10th की हो, 12th की हो, कोई भी परीक्षा, नर्वस एनर्जी तो हर एक इंसान के अंदर होती ही है। द लेसन इज, आप अगर डर छोड़ोगे फिर आप अपनी नेचुरल गेम खेलोगे।
And Paralympian Avni Lekra also did a small meditation with the students to refire their brains for different situations. She said failure is a bigger part of success and be kind.
हम डरते उन चीज़ों से जिनके बारे में हमें नॉलेज नहीं होती, तो मैंने एक एक करके नॉलेज गेन करनी शुरू करी कि ये मुझे पढ़ना है, ये मुझे सीखना है, इम्प्रूव करना है मेरी टेक्निक में। और फिर ऐसे करते करते मेरा जो डर है ना, वो धीरे धीरे कम होता गया। कभी कभी ना कंसिस्टेंसी बहुत मैटर करती है चीज़ों के लिए। अगर आप रोज आधा घंटा 1 घंटा पढ़ाई कर रहे हो, 1 घंटा पूरा फोकस के साथ करोगे तो आई थिंक आपको वो ज़्यादा दिमाग में रहेगा। ब्रीदिंग एक्सरसाइजेज होती हैं, अगर आप वो करते हो तो आपका ना जो हार्ट रेट है वो भी थोड़ी काम होती है और आप एक चीज़ पे ध्यान दे पाते हो।
All right, now let's take a look at other stories making news around the country in brief. The Assam government is holding its budget session of the Assam Legislative Assembly in Kokrachhar today. This marks a historic moment as, for the first time ever, the Assam Legislative Assembly session is being held outside the state capital of Guwahati. The move highlights the importance of the Bodoland region in the state's political and administrative landscape. India's Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Mohan Yadav inaugurated the 24th All India Police Water Sports Competition in Bhopal. Total 557 participants from 22 states, union territories and central armed forces are participating in the competition. 132 women players are also participating in the competition. There will be a total of 27 events, including canoeing, kayaking and rowing in the event. Chennai recorded a significant increase in migratory bird numbers this season with over 1 lakh birds observed. This is more than double the previous highest count in 2019. The migratory season from November to March usually sees around 25,000 birds at Balikadanai marshland, but this year the numbers far exceeded past the records. Time to take a short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman engages in post-budget discussion with industry stakeholders in Mumbai. Gujarat Giants beat UP Warriors by 6 wickets in Women's Premier League. And the Indian men's hockey team earned their first FIH Pro League points with a 2-0 victory against Spain.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Well, India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman engaged in a post-budget discussion with industry stakeholders in Mumbai on Monday. During the interaction, the minister emphasized government's focus on maintaining robust public expenditure alongside capital and asset building. As a result, the capex or the capital expenditure has seen an increase as compared to the previous budget.
The broad picture is that the government's emphasis since post-COVID to put money for public expenditure in capital building, asset building continues. And that is why this time the capex shown in the budget compared to last year is at least 10.2% more, meaning 11.11 lakh crores was in the July budget, starting from the vote on account budget for the year 24-25. And now, if I add the public sector enterprises' own resources, not from our budget, putting their own resources into capital asset building, our over 11 lakh of 24-25 has itself gone to 11.21 lakh crores.
The Finance Minister also discussed the tax concessions provided to the people of India, expressing gratitude to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his concentration towards taxpayers. She highlighted the government's shift in focus towards boosting consumption.
The tax concession which has been given in this budget, and I thank Honorable Prime Minister for being absolutely considerate about taxpayer and rewarding the taxpayer. And on that score, it was readily agreed by him that we should give relief up to 12 lakh rupees of annual income. And that is why today we are able to say that that probably is giving a picture that we are giving a shifted emphasis for consumption boosting rather than for capital asset building, which has been the feature all the while.
Now, Sri Lanka's President Anura Kumara Dissanayake today presented his first full-year budget. The focus of the first budget of the NPP government was on economic recovery and meeting IMF bailout terms. The island nation had secured a $2.9 billion IMF deal in March 2023 and has completed 3 reviews so far, with the 4th tranche expected soon. Sri Lanka has so far shown a faster than expected recovery to emerge from the financial crisis. Although the inflation has eased, interest rates have fallen and debt restructuring was completed in the month of December, the challenge of making the economy stable for the debt repayments still exists. Dissanayake, who is also the finance minister, earlier promised lower taxes, welfare programs and boosting local industries. The International Monetary Fund has once again delayed the disbursement of the 4th installment of loan to Bangladesh, amounting to $645 million of the $4.7 billion till the month of June. While talking to the reporters in Dhaka, finance advisor of Bangladesh, Salahuddin Ahmed, attributed some pending conditions for the deferment of the next tranche, which was due in the current month. Initially, the proposal for the 4th tranche was scheduled for discussion on the 5th of February, with disbursement planned for the same month. But the discussion was first postponed for March and has now been delayed further till the month of June. According to Business Standard newspaper, Bangladesh government had signed a $4.7 billion loan agreement with the IMF in 2022 to be released in 7 installments, out of which only 3 installments have been disbursed so far. You're watching DD India News Hour. Now it's time to get you all the latest from the world of sports. To begin with cricket first. Gujarat Giants defeated UP Warriors by 6 wickets to register its first points of the Women's Premier League 2025 season on Sunday night. An improved fielding effort and a rounded performance with bat and ball helped Gujarat Giants register the victory. In men's cricket, defending champion Kolkata Knight Riders will take on Royal Challengers Bengaluru at the Eden Gardens in Kolkata in the first match of the 2025 season of the IPL leg on the 22nd of March. The full schedule for the IPL was announced on Sunday. Now, last year's runners-up Sunrisers Hyderabad will host Rajasthan Royals in its tournament opener on the 23rd of March. Later on the same day, Chennai Super Kings will be up against Mumbai Indians in Chennai. On to hockey. The Indian men's hockey team earned their first FIH Pro League points with a 2-0 victory against Spain, while the women suffered a heartbreaking shootout defeat against England in Bhubaneswar on Sunday. India made as many as 5 changes from the side that played the opener on Saturday, including Harmanpreet Singh, with Hardik Singh stepping in as the skipper. On to soccer. Frenchman Hugo Humbert defeated Hamad Medjedovic in straight sets to successfully defend his Marseille Open title. Humbert was a break point up in the first set before Medjedovic clawed back to force a tiebreaker. However, the Frenchman was in command of the tiebreaker and eased past his opponent to clinch the first set. And then he continued in the second set as well. Humbert secured the second set with a scoreline of 6-4 to win the championship for the second consecutive time. In soccer, Tottenham Hotspur edged past Manchester United by 1-0 in a thrilling encounter on Sunday. Making his return after suffering a calf injury, James Maddison scored the winning goal against Manchester United. Maddison converted a rebound shot from close range to give his side a 1-0 victory in London. And despite the victory, Spurs remain in the bottom half of the table, sitting in the 12th spot. Moving on, Juventus defeated their fierce rivals Inter Milan by 1-0 in Serie A match on Sunday. Francisco Conchao netted the winning goal 16 minutes before the end of an entertaining contest in Turin. Portugal attacker Conceição scored his 4th goal of the season in all competitions to give Juventus a 3rd straight league victory. And before we end, now it's time to give you some amazing visuals. A bronze sculpture by French sculptor Camille Claudel was auctioned off in France on Sunday for more than $3 million. The sculpture is believed to display the feeling of a separation with fellow artist and lover Auguste Rodin. Agonized by her troubled personal life, Claudel had destroyed much of her work before being confined to a psychiatric hospital in the year 1913. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from the country and the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.
झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कर आता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल।